One strait, 21 miles wide, and through it flows nearly 20% of the world's entire oil supply. Iran knows this, and for decades they've used that choke point like a loaded gun, pointed straight at the global economy. But here's what nobody's talking about. The United States and its allies are now assembling a naval and technological force so massive, so expensive, that it would fundamentally change the math in the Persian Gulf forever. We're talking about $100 billion in combined military hardware, infrastructure, and firepower, all pointed at one problem: the Strait of Hormuz. And later in this video, I'm going to show you exactly who's getting paid, because behind every missile, every warship, and every drone patrol, there's a defense contractor cashing a very large check. Let's start with the trap itself, because you need to understand what Iran actually built here, and why it terrified energy markets for 40 years. The Strait of Hormuz is the world's single most important oil choke point. Every single day, roughly 17 million barrels of crude oil pass through that narrow corridor. That's oil headed to Japan, China, South Korea, India, and Europe. If Iran shuts it down, even for 72 hours, the global oil price doesn't just spike, it explodes. Goldman Sachs analysts have estimated that a sustained Hormuz closure could send oil past $200 a barrel. That's not a war, that's a financial weapon. And Iran built its strategy specifically around that threat. They call it asymmetric warfare. Small, fast attack boats, anti-ship missiles buried in coastal caves, underwater mines that cost a few $1,000s each but can disable a billion-dollar tanker, suicide drones that cost next to nothing but can start a war worth trillions. The Iranian playbook is brilliant in a dark way. You don't need to win a conventional war. You just need to make the risks so high, so unpredictable, that the insurance costs alone destroy global trade confidence. And it worked, for decades. But now, the math is changing. Fast. The United States Central Command has been quietly assembling what military analysts are calling the most sophisticated integrated maritime defense force in modern history. And the numbers are staggering. Start with the carrier strike groups. A single U.S. Navy carrier strike group costs roughly $8 billion to operate annually, and Washington has been rotating multiple strike groups into the region simultaneously. That's not a patrol, that's a statement. Then there's the hardware specifically designed to counter Iran's Hormuz strategy. The Navy's MQ-9B Sea Guardian drone, a maritime surveillance variant, runs about $32 million per unit. The Pentagon has been deploying them specifically over the Gulf to track Iran's small boat swarms in real time. Continuous coverage, no blind spots. But the really expensive piece? The one that defense contractors are absolutely celebrating right now? It's the integrated missile defense umbrella being constructed across the region. Raytheon's Patriot Advanced Capability 3 batteries, the PAC-3, cost about $1 billion per battery to deploy and equip. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Bahrain have all recently upgraded or expanded their systems. Raytheon's Gulf region backlog alone is worth several $billion in active contracts. Lockheed Martin is delivering Advanced Terminal High Altitude Area Defense Systems, THAAD, to regional partners at a cost of nearly $3 billion per battery. One system, $3 billion. And the Gulf states are buying multiple units. Northrop Grumman is supplying the surveillance and battle management architecture that ties all of this together. Their contracts across the region are worth hundreds of millions per year just in maintenance and integration alone. This is not defense spending. This is an economic ecosystem. And American defense contractors are the primary beneficiaries. Now here's where it gets really interesting, because the $100 billion figure isn't just about American hardware. The Gulf Cooperation Council, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Oman has collectively committed to what is effectively the largest regional military modernization in their history. And it's all structured around one objective: making sure the Strait of Hormuz never gets closed. Saudi Arabia alone spent $75 billion on defense in 2023. The UAE spent around $23 billion. And a massive chunk of that money, we're talking tens of billions, is going directly into maritime and missile defense systems designed to counter the Iranian threat. Why are they spending this much? Because the economic math is brutal. Saudi Arabia's entire national budget runs on oil exports that flow through Hormuz. If that strait closes for 90 days, the Saudi government faces a fiscal crisis. Saudi Arabia alone spent $75 billion on defense in 2023. The UAE spent around $23 billion. And a massive chunk of that money, we're talking tens of billions, is going directly into maritime and missile defense systems designed to counter the Iranian threat. Why are they spending this much? Because the economic math is brutal. Saudi Arabia's entire national budget runs on oil exports that flow through Hormuz. If that strait closes for 90 days, the Saudi government faces a fiscal crisis. The UAE's economy, built on trade and commerce at Jebel Ali, the largest port in the Middle East, collapses without open sea lanes. These countries aren't just buying weapons, they're buying economic survival insurance. And the premium on that policy costs tens of billions per year. But let's talk about the technological piece that's genuinely reshaping the power balance. Because this is where the next 100 years of Gulf strategy gets decided. The United States has been quietly deploying what the Navy calls distributed maritime operations. Instead of concentrating power in one massive carrier, you spread it out. Hundreds of networked platforms, unmanned surface vessels, subsurface drones, AI-driven surveillance satellites, and fast missile boats, all talking to each other in real time. General Dynamics is building autonomous underwater vehicles specifically designed to detect and neutralize Iranian mines before they hit commercial tankers. Each system costs millions, and the Navy has ordered them in significant numbers. L3Harris Technologies is supplying the communications and electronic warfare systems that let all of these platforms talk to each other. Their Gulf-related contracts have grown substantially in the past 3 years. And then there's Israel. The Abraham Accords quietly turned Israel into a de facto military partner with several Gulf states. Israel's Iron Dome and David's Sling technology, developed with U.S. funding and built by Rafael and Boeing, is now part of the regional defense conversation in ways that were unthinkable a decade ago. The integration of Israeli electronic warfare capabilities into the broader Gulf defense architecture adds another layer of complexity that Iran's military planners are genuinely nervous about. Here's the part that the financial media almost never covers: the tanker insurance angle. When Iran threatened Hormuz in 2019 and attacked several tankers, war risk insurance premiums for Gulf shipping didn't just go up, they multiplied overnight. A voyage that previously cost $50,000 to insure suddenly cost $500,000 or more. Shipping companies, energy traders, and commodity merchants were paying a massive Iran premium every single day. Lloyd's of London, the global center of maritime insurance, estimates that sustained Gulf instability adds billions of dollars per year to the global cost of energy transportation. That's not the cost of a missile. That's the hidden tax that Iran's strategy imposes on every consumer on the planet who buys gasoline, uses plastic, or heats their home. The $100 billion armada isn't just a military project. It's a global insurance policy. And the beneficiaries are everyone, from a family in Ohio paying their heating bill to a factory in Germany buying petrochemical feedstocks. When you understand that framing, the spending doesn't look crazy. It looks like the cheapest possible option. So where does this leave Iran? Iran's military budget is roughly $10 billion per year. That's less than what the United States spends on Persian Gulf operations alone in many years. Iran cannot win a conventional arms race. They know that. Their bet has always been that the asymmetric threat, the mines, the drones, the small boats, the missiles, is too chaotic and too cheap to fully neutralize. For every $32 million American drone, Iran can build 100 attack boats. For every billion-dollar Patriot battery, Iran can fire enough missiles to exhaust the interceptor inventory. It's the classic high-cost versus low-cost warfare problem, and it's a real strategic challenge. But the Mega Armada changes the calculus in one critical way. It's not just about stopping Iranian weapons. It's about making the economic and military risk of using those weapons so catastrophically high for Iran that the cost-benefit calculation shifts completely. If Iran closes Hormuz and invites full escalation, they don't just face American carriers. They face an integrated, AI-networked, multi-nation defense architecture backed by $100 billion in hardware, with real-time surveillance covering every inch of the Gulf. The Iranian naval and missile forces would face simultaneous strikes from multiple vectors before they could reload. The Armada is designed not to fight a war. It's designed to make starting one economically suicidal for Tehran.